we're going to talk about back pain. Now, 10 people in here. Statistics say that a few of us have experienced back pain before. How many people have?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay. Kimberly has.
Me.
Me too.
Angela.
Okay. So that's at least half of us right there. I know that Nick has. I think he's on mute. You were out for a while, I know. And so the back pain is a actually false. Let me start by saying pain is a multifaceted phenomenon. Who in here has ever heard of phantom limb syndrome? Yeah, and what's that all about?
I've heard of it.
When you have a limb amputated and then you can still feel the pain, right?
There you go. So how is that possible that your arm is gone, but yet you still feel that? Because pain comes from the brain. There's a fascinating story. The best week of the year. See how good you guys are. It's not March Madness. What's the best week? Anyone know? It's not even Christmas. It's better than Christmas. Shark Week. So I was watching Shark Week, and there was this South African diver. And here's a fun little factoid for you guys: that the two highest concentrations of great white sharks in the world. Brandon, you should know one. Do you know Brandon? Oh, Brandon is on a call, or he's not on yet. Actually, that's why. The Farallon Islands, right outside of San Francisco, and then also South Africa. And so this guy was going down abalone diving, got his little abalone coming up, put his hand on the boat, and then he felt this huge rush of inertia next to him. And he's like, what the hell? And then he puts his hand up there and he sees all this red and he tries to move his arm, but he can't because it's gone. So a shark came by, bit his arm off. And in the interview, the person interviewing him kind of opens up their eyes really big because he told him that he didn't feel it. It's like, how can you not feel a ton shark, if not smaller, obviously smaller, but bite your arm off? It's because your brain is pretty cool. And what your brain will do is it's pretty simple. Your brain will say, this sucks, deal with it, or oh shit, this is severe. So even worse than getting your arm bitten off, what's the worst injury in the world? The single worst injury you can ever experience.
Like breaking your back or neck.
Even worse than that.
I don't
Brainstem.
Nope. Paper cut. If you've ever gotten a paper cut, you know it just hurts like holy hell. And you're like, what the hell? And you're like, really? That little sliver right there? And you're screaming and you're moaning, or like an ingrown toenail, right? So your brain is saying, hey, stop being a baby, just deal with it. But when it comes to something severe like a broken bone, that's why you hear a lot of people will say a sprain is worse than a break, because you experience the pain when you sprain something because the brain is going, you didn't break it, toughen up. But when you lose a limb, the brain goes, oh shit, this is serious. It drops all these cool little neurotransmitters. And what the neurotransmitters are, I don't have my top, but so this is like a pain receptor. And so what happens is when your brain releases these neurotransmitters, it clogs it. So then you can't feel anything. And we have some cool sensory inputs to the body that have it's like a hierarchy. And so there's certain neurons that will go to the brain that will, think of it like in your stereotypical LA club, which I've actually never been to, but it's like, all the girls get it going first. The guys have to wait in line. So it's kind of like that with the brain. There's a hierarchy for what signals come to the brain and which ones don't. And you can try this next time you get hurt. So next time you stub a toe or someone punches you in the arm, the opposite side, so contralaterally, rub your skin as hard as you possibly can. And when you rub your skin, what's going to happen is your brain, because these pathways have a hierarchy, are going to accept that signal from your skin burning, and it's going to shut off that signal to the other side. And so it's kind of a cool little, not cool, but it's just a little fun thing. And what's a phenomena out there that makes a lot of money off of people, kind of similar to that? Anyone know?
TENS unit?
No, that has some application due to muscular contractions. I'll give you a hint, Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh, the ice thing.
There you go. So what does that do? You put it on your body and it's just a chemical reaction that's basically just burning your skin. And so what happens then is you put a little ointment of peppermint or whatever the hell it is. It smells good. It's like a slight little tingling, but actually it's burning your skin. So it's a slight burn that's just relieving that pain, because what's the largest organ of the human body?
The skin.
Very good. Yep. So the skin is going to constantly be sending signals back to the brain. Now, I've worked with some of the top therapists in arguably the world. Chad Waterbury, he's a neurotherapist. He works a lot with neurology and pain and movement. The prehab guys, they have a great app that you can use. I just posted in here a little movement movement prep that I do. And so I'll go over a routine that I do with everyone. It's actually very similar to what you see in there as well. But we don't actually have an exact case for what we were talking about back pain today. But I will use myself. In 2011, I was bench pressing. And I remember vividly, it was 315. First time ever trying to get it. Too much of an arch. So anterior tilt with too much of a thoracic arch. Not engaging my core, not engaging my glutes. A lot of pressure on my spine, my L4, L5, felt a little type of a pop and was in misery. And being a guy, I let it just stick around for about 2 years. My pain tolerance was up to a 7 or 8. Sometimes I get out of bed and I could barely walk. I would just stick to upper body stuff. I didn't do legs for 2 years. Never squatted, never did this because it just irritated the hell out of it. Even like military press would just irritate it. Legs would go numb all the time. It sucked. And luckily for me, when I was in high school and college, I worked at a physical therapy unit, and I was a technician for over 7 years. So I had a lot of exposure to injuries and the processes. And one of the therapists, Dr. Valponi, and I always remember he would tell me the number one rule is never, ever go into the knife when it comes to this, in your spine. So I went into the doc on an MRI. You go into this room and you got like slip discs and all these words that scare the hell out of you, and like it's all white and it just smells. You got like all this like machines and shit, and you're on edge. Doc comes in, not the nicest guy in the world, just reads off his chart, says, "Oh, you have a protrusion." So let me put it like this: you have like a slight bulge, which is like nothing. You have a disc herniation, which is kind of severe. You have protrusion, which you have. So it's completely out of the spine and it's affecting your nerves. So this is pretty damn bad. He says, my suggestion is you never run again, you never jump again, you never squat again, never deadlift. He did a whole list of things I can never do. My suggestion is you get this nerve cauterized, because with peripheral nerves, they will regenerate. With central ones, they will not. So you guys were right earlier when you were talking about nasty injuries to the neck. Obviously, if you were to break your back, you would want to break it at the L5, S1 level, because you would limit your, you could still at least use your upper body. But for an injury that would be like your C1 up there, that's what Superman had, died. Uniquely, it took him a long time to die. Anyone know why it took him so long to die? Don't say it's because he was Superman. Usually you break your neck up that high, you die within a couple days and weeks. It's a very quick death. What is it's just the way it is. But when you got money, you can live longer. So he was able to establish one of the best teams, and now he has I believe it's still there, the Christopher Reeves Foundation, and constant top end medical care. And so they were able to, preserve his life for a very, very long time. He's like an insane case. And so when I went in, they wanted to do this nerve route. They go in there and they cauterize the nerve. And then he said, maybe 9 months, maybe a year, it'll come back. And so we just have to repeat the process. But one of the negative things about the process is the half-life cuts in half. It's a half-life. So it's like, if it took 9 months for you to experience the pain, so it'll probably come back within 4 or 5 months. And so each time it's going to get shorter and shorter. And so this was what I had to look forward to for the rest of my life. And I'm like, nope, not going to do it. So I just started doing research with, luckily, the people who I'm closely connected with, the PTDC, personal training development company, Dean Somerset, Tony Gentilcore, Brett Contreras, and came across the low back guru. Does anyone know who is considered one of the best low back specialists in the world? Not surgeons, specialists when it comes to low back issues. Dr. Stu McGill, and he's actually out of Toronto, I believe, and he is one of the top back specialists in the world. He has a book, The Low Back Disorders. He wrote a book with Brian Shaw, and he completely shattered. Like, I looked at my MRI and how bad it was. Brian Shaw's, it's not Brian Shaw, his name's something, Brian something. His back was just completely destroyed. Let's see if I can find you. Stu McGill. It's not back mechanic, back pain. That's Brian. Brian Carroll's his name. The Gift of Injury. An amazing book. I would highly suggest getting it. The Gift of Injury. Brian was one of the top powerlifters in the world. Remember, powerlifting is your squat, your bench, your deadlift. And he completely shattered his back. And he was in the parking lot with a loaded gun, about to kill himself. And he's like, nope, not going to do it. I got a family, got kids. And so he reached out to Dr. McGill, and McGill brought him back to life, and he starts lifting, and he's pretty much back to normal. And that led me to books to read. Crooked is an amazing book. And that is a journalist who writes about how corrupt that industry is. And this journalist goes to an orthopedic convention for low back specialists. And she interviewed 100 surgeons who that's what they do. They work on low back surgeries. Out of those 100 surgeons, she asked them, how many of you would get low back surgery? What do you think the percentage was?
Less than 5.
A big goose egg. Not a single one said they would do it. Yet they were doing these surgeries and surgeries. So then you go down that whole conspiracy theory and opiates and all that stuff and how much money they get per surgery. And it's a crazy story. But she talks about Stu McGill. She talks about Craig LeBenson. And I knew of Craig, but I've never, I didn't follow him. I didn't know much about him. But Craig LeBenson's LA Sports Spine out of LA. So I went and chatted with him. Best investment of my life. It was a $350 consultation. And he went through all this magical guru shit and he's playing on my big toe, smacking me. Like, it's crazy shit he was doing. And he talked to me about what's called central sensitization. And what happens is your brain gets used to the pain signal going out. And so the best example that he gave me would be like, Chris, you're driving on the freeway and your gas light comes on. It's a beautiful sign. Something's wrong. Pain's a beautiful thing. I just watched a great TED talk from one of the top doctors out there, and he's talking about fevers. And fevers are a unique phenomenon that have been around for eons. Even animals experience it. So why are we trying to stop a fever? And it was talking about with COVID and stuff. And obviously you need to listen to your physician. But in his experience, in his professional opinion, he said fevers you should just let run out. Don't do anything. Learn some fun stuff about blood cells. And there's white blood cells and red blood cells, but there's specific types of blood cells that are called lymphocytes. And they actually flourish in a warmer environment. So when you experience a fever, these specialized cells come out, and it's like they're like the Ninja Turtles. They got to go out there and start doing their shit. So when you take acetaminophen, when you take NSAIDs, when you try to cool down the body, you're actually not allowing them to do their job, which was fascinating. Sorry to go off on a tangent, but Craig, when we went through how everything that's going on with me, he said, think of it like this. Your body, normally when it has pain, there's a response, and that's a good thing. That's what we're talking about with the body heating up. But now what happens is, imagine driving on the freeway after you just pulled over a mile back and you filled up your tank. Barring some significant errors that are going on, or just something going on with your gas tank, more than likely you would feel all right thinking it's just your switch that's, you blew a fuse, right? So we said essentially that's what happens with the body, is that you will begin to always interpret having pain even though you don't have pain. And that goes into what we mentioned earlier in the beginning of class with the phantom limb. So your arm isn't there, but it thinks it's there. Your brain is. Does anyone know how they actually discovered the cure for phantom limb pain? Like most things in the world, it was by accident. Anyone know?
I know what it is. I don't know how they found it.
I'll give you a hint. It is the best looking thing in the world. A mirror. You look in the mirror, you see yourself, right? But if I have my right arm, it's gone, and I put my left arm in the mirror and I move my hand around, what does my brain see? It sees the other side. And so they would bring in mirrors and they would put the patient in front of the mirror and they would wiggle their arm, and then the brain would see it and it would calm down. So that was one of the most fascinating things that I learned from that experience and getting more into the whole central sensitization aspect. I have a hard time saying that word. I'm not slurring my speech. It's a hard word to say. Try to say it. Sensitization. Sensitization. It's a tough one. But that phenomenon is what really opened up my eyes. And when I started working with Chad and telling me, anything that calms down the brain is going to help. And so, pharmaceuticals, devices, they're going to take advantage of that, right? What's the number one tool you see out there all the time that people are using? For like massage and stuff.
A hypervolt thing.
There you go. You're jamming that in there. Could that work? Sure. It's calming down the nervous system. When I went into that doctor that day and had my report read to me, my nerves were high. Now think about that experience in juxtaposition to going to a massage parlor and then rubbing you down, and you leave there and you're just like, oh, you feel amazing, right? Your central nervous system is calmed down. Your sympathetic nervous system is calmed down. So if we're on constant alert, what are things that can stimulate the sympathetic nervous system? Lack of sleep, stress from your boss, not exercising regularly, traffic, your significant other, kids, finances. A lot of things can stimulate that. So you're constant high. So think of that fuse that we're making reference of when we look at the gas. It's not going to fix itself unless you tell itself, the organism, that you're okay. And so when I was going through the programming with Craig, he would just screen what can you do and what can't you do. And so I took this from him. He calls it the Magnificent Seven. He has his little test that he does. But this was one of the first things that he did, was he had me screen out where I had pain. So the first thing he says, touch your toes 10 times. And then the second, extend. Lateral flexion. And then the last one is you sit down and you pull yourself into your chair for tension. So what we're doing here is when we screen, and you'll notice this when you take people through the assessment. Here's what it looks like with someone who's flexion intolerant. Touch your toes. They'll stop at a certain point because they're afraid to go more. And then they'll hit a spot and be like, it really, really hurts, really, really hurts. Okay, come back up. Go back. Oh, I can actually, you'll see that they're going to move like the brake is on. They move really, really slow. But then when they find it, they're like, oh shit, I can actually do it. And they'll start going into it. I don't have pain back there. And that's significant because now you have a green light. So now let's go to the side. Let me know when it hurts. And they'll go, oh, actually, and they'll move a little better the second time. Like, oh, it's actually, I can do this. Okay, good. Majority of the time, people are flexion intolerant. This is extension intolerant. So if they go like this, ooh, it really hurts. Oh, right there, it really hurts. That means that anything where I extend is going to cause irritation. Picking things up. Oh, shit. That's how people hurt their back. They come down and now they're flexion intolerant and they're always going to baby that. And they're going to walk like this. And I'm doing exactly how people do it because that's how I used to walk. And so then they're deathly afraid of experiencing that again. So what you need to do, calm down the nervous system with your words. Pain is perfectly normal. I experience this myself. And if you haven't experienced back pain, experience it by hurting yourself. No, I'm just joking. Just use it as a third-party experience. My instructor had really bad back pain, and this is perfectly normal. Everything you're experiencing right now is normal. So what that does to them is, oh shit, there's other people out there experiencing this. Cool. They calm down a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go find your pain. This isn't going to be fun. You're going to find it, and I'm going to then take a mental photo of that, and then we're going to play around your pain. So I only have a couple people on here that have their cameras on, so I'm going to go with Kimberly. Kimberly, can you go off mute for a second? All right, so does your right ear hurt?
My right ear, no.
See how quickly she gave that feedback where she didn't think about it. So when you ask someone who has pain, did that hurt? No, that was okay. It wasn't that bad. No, that hurt. You're lying to me. You registered pain. You're trying to be tough. Whereas when you come to the side, did that hurt? Oh, wow. No, it didn't. Their expression, the way that they tell you, you're going to know. It was funny because I usually do left ear. And one time in class, I'm like, does your left ear hurt? And the student was like, not really. I'm like, how does your ear hurt? And they're like, well, I was drunk a couple nights ago and I was boxing with my buddy and he knocked me in the ear. I'm like, see, that's what happens. And so do it. You can just do that test on anyone. Find something you know that's not going to hurt, like chin, ear, eye. It's a quick response. That's what I want the response to be like when we move. And so when you go left, right, you find that area where there's no pain. So now that's your safe zone. So anytime that you hurt yourself, you need to tell your brain you're fine. So you go home and you're walking around, you pick something up and you blow your back out. You are petrified. But remember, this doesn't cause pain. So you need to get down immediately and start doing those lateral flexions because it's not going to hurt you. Your brain is just on alarm. So you got to go right and left because what that does is telling the brain that, oh, this is just a memory. It's not nearly as bad as it was. I'm going to send you guys another one from Mosley. I love Lorimer Mosley. He is one funny dude. He's one of the top pain specialists in the world. And here's his TED Talk. And he uses this unique analogy because he's from, I think, Australia. And he's walking through the bush and he gets bit by like one of the most poisonous snakes in the world. And he goes through what the physiology is doing. And because he lived in the backwoods, his brain went to a time when he hit a little stick. And so he's fine. And so he goes in the water, and then the next thing he wakes up in the hospital, he almost died. So then being one of the leading pain researchers, he goes through what is happening. There's actually another really cool one with a neuroscientist who experiences a stroke, and she tells you from her experience. But Mosley has some of the top books out there when it comes to pain. A couple of people are mentioning they've had some, L4, L5 stuff. And so I'm going to get into the program that I did on a client here in a second. But when I hear this stuff, I downplay it like nothing. It's like someone telling me that they bench press 135. Cool. All right, let's go to the workout. It's like, I don't care. I care, but my expressions and everything. Oh my God, you have a hurt back? Are you okay? Oh, what? No, it's just, it's perfectly fine. Well, no, it's just like severe. I have a herniation. Herniations are very normal. And the worst thing that you can actually do for, this is ironic, right? But do you guys know what's one of the worst things that you can do for low back pain or low back injury? Sorry.
Not walk. Stay off of it.
Well, yeah, you're right, Mark. Movement is one of the best things for it. But even worse than that, not doing that.
Take medicine, take drugs.
That would be not suggested either. Yep. But
Stretch.
Okay, keep going. Even what do a lot of people end up doing later down the road?
No exercising.
That's true. No moment, but they get something. What do they get? Huh?
Surgery.
But right before surgery.
Oh, they get the injection shot.
Right after the injection shot.
They get injured.
Nope. MRI. So MRIs are, the studies have shown they're very subpar at best. And there is this famous study that they teach at all universities for physical therapy. And they took 100 individuals off the street, of which 50 of them, I'm screwing these numbers up, don't quote me on these, but let's just say 50 of them had back pain, 50 of them didn't have back pain. And they put them into the MRI machine, magnetic resonance imaging. You know, that big ass thing that clanks and clongs, that thing's a mess if you're afraid of close spaces. But they took the 50 with back pain, the 50 without back pain. Half of the people with no back pain had bulged discs. Half the people with back pain didn't have any disc problems. And so going back to, it's multifactorial, people are experiencing pain where they didn't have physiological or anatomical distortions or any type of anomalies. People who were perfectly fine on the street who had bulged discs, of which these people are experiencing pain, these people aren't. So you go to a doctor and they say you have a bulged disc. What does your brain do? Oh shit, I'm a leopard. I'm broken. I can't move. I need to get in fight mode. Sympathetic nervous system shoots up. Everything is on fight or flight. So then we don't move as well. I'm broken. I have to move very, very slow. And you will have to do that in the beginning when you have that, but you need to calm that person down. So like one of the first things I'll do after I do that test is I teach people how to get up and get down. So in the sagittal plane, I don't like to twist very much. So I'll do this with my client and I'm right with them. I say, absolutely 100% nothing's going to happen. Could something happen? Maybe, but I've never had it happen yet. The confidence in your words makes them feel a lot better because your spine isn't moving right here. We did that test earlier. And when you came down at a certain degree, that's when you have pain. So if my spine doesn't move, you're not going to hurt yourself. You're not in pain right now. So we're not going to move our spine. So you're going to sit back on your feet. You're going to walk out. We're going to get into a push-up position and you're going to come back. Every single time, client can do it. And they're like, oh, wow, I didn't think I could do that. I told you, everything is all right. I've had this problem. We're not going to put your spine into a flexion because that's what irritated you. So I want you to go there. And we're going to come here and then go back. And we're just going to do these reps. Now, right now, give me a scale of 1 to 10 on how much pain you have. 4, 5, usually it's like 6, 7. All right, so here's our 7. When you're working with me, you're going to get here 6. You may even go up to an 8. Perfectly normal. This is normal. I don't want you at 9 or 10 where it's so excruciating you feel like you're going to pass out. And I'm going to be able to see that with you. But this is normal. You're at a 7, 8 is normal, 6 is normal. If you experience anything outside of that when we're doing the exercise, we will back off. And sometimes you'll see it, like they get a little shock, so then you just back them out of it. But they come here, we'll go there, and we just start moving. I'm getting them to realize that they can move okay. And then I'll go through McGill's big 3. The big 3 are going to be a bird dog. So I get them into the bird dog position where my hands are directly under my shoulders. And I keep my core nice and tight, and I lift my arm out. And I'm walking around them. Remember, your spine's not moving right here. You're just teaching them that movement's good. This isn't going to hurt them. I don't want them to wag their ass. And then they're going to drive their leg back, other leg. And I do this very slow. The purpose, I'm going fast right now with my client. I'm on my knees like this. I'm walking around. The name of the game is super, super slow and controlled. The moment I think of it like a tabletop, one of those 4 corners move, we stop and we fix it. So shoulders, hips. If I see my client go like this, on the bird dog, there's too much of a shift. We're going to stop and correct that. So when we do this exercise, it's 1 arm at a time, 1 leg at a time, and you go all the way out. And then we're going to go 1 arm with the 1 leg, hold there, come back. Here, hold, and then come back. That's 1 rep. Do you experience any pain outside of what we said earlier? It's still like at a 6 or 7, maybe late. Perfectly normal. You're doing awesome. This is your medicine. I want you to start doing this 1 set for 15 repetitions every day. The second one they're going to do is just a side plank. So in this position, you teach your client to get down so they're not bending their spine. Spine is still straight, side plank. If it starts to hurt, come down. Up, down. If you need to go here, regress it, that's fine. Spine is neutral. Switch around, you teach them how to get up. Spine is nice and straight. I don't want rotations. Rotations are what can irritate your client because that's like red zone to the brain. It's just, it loses its shit. So I don't like rotation, transverse stuff, not with the back injury in the beginning parts. So I'll teach them how to get up. Find the spot where they can go. Here. So if you come here and you're like, I don't want to come here anymore. Where I want to go is right before that. This is what you're going to do. That's okay. This is our movement now. That's great. I love it. That's really good. Good job. You use those words of affirmation. So even though they aren't moving that much, if it's just a couple inches down, a couple inches back, that's great because the brain is recognizing that we're not a leper. And so just by doing the plank, which I didn't do right there, I did a push-up. So plank would be one, bird dog would be two, and the side plank. And McGill likes to also do what's called the curl up when he goes into that one. So look at the McGill 3. What I like to do when I take my clients through it, I had a guy about 2 years ago in West Hollywood, came in, hobbled in, worst pain of his life, very nonchalant. Let's have you sign your waiver. Let's talk about your medical history. Everything's fine. You're good to go. This is very common. I work with a ton of people. Worst case scenario, it does get worse. I work with some of the top physical therapists in the world. We're going to get you fixed. I guarantee you that. So they just feel a lot better about my verbiage. When I do exercise, I'm not doing planks, Palofs, because that's rotation. I keep it simple. Spine, we're going to do planks, side planks, holds, bird dogs. We're doing those every single day. The best thing for people with back pain, this is what they say: sleep, walking, and exercises that don't irritate the back. Because then you're teaching them that this is okay. This is perfectly normal. You're going to have people that are going to come in and they are, maybe over the weekend, they blew their back out and they come in and it's almost like in a walker and they're so afraid. I'm not going to take them through a high intense workout. I'm not going to do military presses or things that's going to compress the spine. That's why I do this test right here when I push them down and squeeze. I'm going to do things that they're comfortable with. So I know that the bird dog, the plank, and the side plank are safety exercises. So I show them that and it makes them feel a lot better. I'm going to check in with them the next day to see how they're doing. Do your exercises. This is your medicine. The next time they come in, I'm going to show them one new exercise. Now, if their back were to experience a flare-up, which is common, tell them that in the beginning. This is a journey. So think of it as like a 16-game season. We're not going undefeated. Just get that in your mind right now. We're going to lose some games. There's going to be days where your back's going to suck. It's going to regress. Perfectly normal. So what I just did right there is I set that expectation in the brain. So if it were, they're kind of like, oh, Chris told me it's fine. So again, their nervous system's going to calm down. I haven't experienced a lot of that, but I always preface it. So then we're going week to week, workout to workout, week to week. They're getting stronger. They're getting more confident. I worked with a girl about 5 years ago, and she went to the hospital, had an ambulance come 3 different times when she was at a CrossFit because she was just moving too rapidly and she didn't learn how to brace her core. And so I taught her how to brace her core. And bracing your core is the example I like to use is imagine all of us, we're in class right now, and I called my buddy Casper, and he's going to go to one of your houses. In the next 30 minutes, he's going to fucking punch you in the gut as hard as he can. You don't know when it's going to happen. So you need to be tight. You need to be prepared for when Casper comes. So you're constantly, they call it like your pooping muscles. You're squeezed there. That's called bracing. So now that you're nice and tight, it's gonna keep your back nice and supported. We like to use a lot of literature that isn't up to date, and the back is so fragile. The back is not fragile. It is a magnificent mechanical piece of awesomeness. Think of it like a tent. Just the pull by itself isn't that strong. But when you anchor that pull down and you put a mat, tent over it, it's a nice and strong structure, relatively. And so that's exactly what happens when you learn to brace, when you engage your core, I like to do bridges. That's usually the second exercise I'll do the next time they come in, because during a bridge, your back is straight. So I'll get them on their back. Now that they came in, back hasn't gotten any worse. I'm going to teach you how to do a bridge. They come up, they squeeze their ass. And here's an interesting thing. This is all anecdotal. There's nothing scientific behind it, but it's very hard for the clients that I work with who have low back pain to feel their glutes. They'll get up to the top, squeeze their butt as hard as you can, like you got a magical $500 bill. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. They can't feel their glutes. It's because they've allowed this condition to go on for so long that they've kind of missed that connection, that mind-muscle connection. So it will connect. It's not like your glutes aren't working. They're working. You're not, you don't have paralysis. It's just we're not engaging them properly so you feel it. And so we're going to do these a lot and just focus, close your eyes, really focus on picturing your glutes firing up. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And if you don't, it's all right, but we will get there. And it's really interesting that I have found in my anecdotes is as my client works with me longer, longer, and longer, when their pain starts going away, they can feel their glutes firing faster and harder. And so it's, again, going back to the brain, how it controls all stuff, there's a lot of stuff going back here, and your glutes are a really powerful muscle. I'm not going to say things like, oh, you have low back pain because you have a tight psoas, or your glutes, or you have glute amnesia. That's just kind of lazy language that a lot of people will read in a simple textbook. And, oh, you have a lower cross syndrome, therefore you have you're going to get low back pain. Now, we can't say stuff like that. So low back pain is an interesting phenomenon. We don't know what causes it, but we do know that the best thing forward is movement and how we teach people about it. So pain education is very important. So hopefully this was helpful. I didn't have like a program for you, but I set the expectations with the McGill 3. Check out those videos. Look at the link that I put in there. I liked it. That's my little movement screen: lateral flexion, extension, pull down for tension. So from there, I'm going to kind of use that data for the next things that I'm going to do. And that's going to be a bird dog. Get down in that position. Don't twist. Don't plank. I didn't actually do the plank, but that's the one I'll do next. Side plank. Those are the ones that I'm really going to focus on. Then use that verbiage. You're perfectly all right. You can do these at home a couple times, couple sets. We don't need to go crazy though. 2-3 sets of 30. Keep it between like 8 to 15. Nothing crazy. We don't want to go to fatigue. We just want to do the work. And then after that, they come back in, get in some bridges. Bridges will be fine. And then maybe you start doing some body weight squats. So each time you show one new exercise. So if I do some body weight squats with my client, and the next time they come in, they're like, yeah, my back's kind of, I'm going to find out how they slept, if they've been stressed out, hydration, food, a lot of those other factors I'm going to eliminate. But if I can point it to the squat, then I'm just going to eliminate that for now. And so then I know the bridge is fine. I know those planks are fine. We go back to those for that next session. We'll be good to go. Typically with low back injuries, we don't like to do a lot of unilateral stuff either. Because if I do like a single arm press, contralaterally, I need to get my core to engage. And they're just not, it's just, the brain isn't, it's not used to that right now. So doing like a bench press would typically be fine. Maybe you want to put their feet on the bench because it's nice and supported, making sure they're breathing through it and they're strong in the core. Like a pull down, a lat pull down would be fine. Lateral raises would be fine. Typically when you have weight going above, now that weight up here is going to end up on the low back. So maybe just for now, ease into like overhead pressing. I'd much rather see like a landmine press as your first multi-jointed shoulder exercise. Be a little careful with loading up like a back squat because it's a lot of pressure if they don't know how to really engage their core. Step ups are great. Love step ups, love progression from that would be a lunge. Progression from that would be Bulgarians. I love teaching deadlifts, and that I think that caused a lot of concern for my clients because people think of deadlifts and what do they think about?
Then
back.
That's how you hurt your back. You will hurt your back if you deadlift. That's wrong. You're going to hurt your knees if you squat. Don't say that to Dan John, one of the top strength coaches in the world. He was at a Perform Better conference, 400 people in there, and he's talking about squatting, and some dipshit in the background goes, "Squatting's bad for your knees." And Dan's this big scary dude. He said, "Who said that? Come up here." And everyone's like, "Oh shit, I shouldn't have said that." The guy came up in front of everyone. He said, "Squat for everyone." And Dan has he tends to have a looser tongue, and the guy squatted, and he's like, "Sit the fuck down. You don't know how to squat." And the guy's like, "Oh, guys, petrified, right?" But squatting isn't bad for your knees. Deadlifting isn't bad for your back. That guy didn't know how to squat. People who hurt their back don't know how to deadlift, or they lifted too much and then just exposed their body to a position they weren't used to. So I did a post the other day on some I call them windmill deadlifts. And it's always funny because people lose their shit. Oh my God, it's so bad for you. You're going to hurt yourself. I'm not saying do that heavy. At no point am I going to put a client into exercise that I do that are a little precarious, or exercise that where you need to be strong. But that's the exact problem we have as trainers and strength coaches, is by scaring people, by saying things like, oh, that's going to hurt you. So what you just did, going back to that analogy with the brain, you put a seed in their mind saying that when you do this, you will hurt yourself. No wonder why so many people hurt their backs when they do a deadlift. This is heavy, don't hurt your back. It's like going to a free throw. Hey man, good shot or good luck. Don't miss it. Don't fucking miss it. You miss it, we're screwed. The guy's like, oh shit, now I don't want to miss it. That's what they're thinking about. So a lot of our verbiage, and we scare the shit out of everyone all the time. The body is beautiful and it can move very well, and it's meant to be strong. We don't need to cater to it. But if you have someone who has an injury, we need to cater to them. And we need to make sure that we keep the spine neutral for now. But the best thing is movement, progressive overload over time.
Hey,
So
Chris,
questions on low back stuff? Yep.
would you think about, instead of doing like an overhead military press, would you incorporate resistance bands to do like an overhead military press? Would that be okay?
Like over like this, I would start with lateral. So go back to what I gave you the 3 exercises to start with. They come back, go to a bridge. They come back, do a body weight squat. They come back, maybe you try like a single leg bridge. They come back, maybe you try doing a really light goblet. And I'm talking sessions now. So like light goblet would be like session 6 or 7. And then I feel a lot more comfortable doing like a landmine versus any type of overhead stuff for now. You know, you can do a band pull apart, face pulls, all great exercises, just teaching them that movement's good, because you don't want to progress too fast. And as long as you set those expectations in the beginning, you're getting 1 new exercise per day. We're going to take long rest periods. We're going to really strengthen your foundation because your foundation wasn't that strong before. And then we're going to build on it. You're going to be squatting heavy. You're going to be deadlifting heavy in no time. You may not think you are, but you will. I would just ease into overhead stuff for now. Doesn't mean you can't, just ease into it.
And resistance bands, though, would you incorporate those as, instead of adding weight? Do you find resistance bands as a good exercise or a good?
No, I mean, nobody. Only thing that I see with resistance bands personally is that they're easy to store and they're cheap. That's really it. When people want to use those, like, oh, you should start with them because they're easier. Well, you can make exercises more challenging with them. I would much rather do a landmine press than any type of band exercise for overhead.
Got it.
I have a question. So I assumed with low back pain, the goal would be to strengthen the core, because probably the core was weak to begin with, and that's where the injury, or what might have led to the injury. Is that true? Or
I wouldn't say it's true. This is outdated information from Dr. Jonda, and that's what they use with the overhead. Sorry, the what do they call it? The upper cross, lower cross pronation distortion. And Dr. Jonda was a pioneer of a lot of this stuff back in the early 20s. Physical therapist, very smart individual, but didn't have the technology at the time. And so as we've progressed, the recent up-to-date research has disproven that. But you know, people they like to stick to old information for whatever reason. And I'm actually going to do a talk next week on Tuesday with Dr. Arash from the prehab guys, and we're going to talk a little bit about the misconceptions behind weakness means pain, because that's it's definitely outdated. And when you say that, it almost scares people even more. So there's no literature that supports that weakness correlates with pain. And so we hear that a lot, but there isn't research to support it.
so then the goal is getting them moving more than strengthening their core.
Well, we are strengthening. It's just in general, think of strength as like a bigger foundation. And I'm not saying being like, oh, let's be weak. No, it's like being strong is great. But we can't put a finger exactly on where that pain is coming from, because it's multifactorial. And we definitely can't say that pain will therefore lead to weakness. So
Okay.
that's where we're going with that. Any other questions?
Hey, Chris,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts on like weight vests and stuff as far as back pain goes?
I would say in the beginning, no, because it's just an extra load and fatigue's going to kick in. And when fatigue kicks in, that's when we're going to move and we're not used to moving. And that's where we could potentially just hurt ourselves in some dead space. So think about like Nick, when you go for a run or like in a basketball game, people typically don't hurt themselves in the very first play. It's usually when they're fatigued. Injuries usually happen on that last rep. So you wear a belt or a vest. Are you talking about a belt or a vest?
I'm talking about a vest because I've been seeing a lot of those lately because of the vest, because of the COVID thing. People are buying all sorts of equipment. I've been seeing
Yeah,
more
yeah.
and
I
more
mean, those
vests.
are fine to work out with, but I'm not going to give it to someone who has low back pain. I would almost see it as more problematic just because it would fatigue the system and they're not used to it. For you and I, it's fine. I mean, you have back pain. You've had it in the past. For you, you're out of that though. So that would be perfectly okay for you. With that being said, a belt is something that can be advantageous when you do go heavy. It's just like an extra support system. But heavy's relative. I'm talking you're lifting weight that you only can do 5-6 times. So don't do it on your first rep when you can do 10 super easy. You got that old fucking guy always in the gym. He walks in there and he puts his belt on. You're like, whoa, hold on there, chief. You don't need to be doing that. You can just, work out. And then when you go real, real heavy, 1 rep max, 3 rep max, 5 rep max, that's when you can put your belt on. But otherwise, there's no need for it at that level. I definitely wouldn't wear a brace like throughout the day. It's even worse, and studies have shown that. So it's just about moving and slowly strengthening and just getting stronger. Those are the things we want to focus on. Anything else? All right. Well, hopefully this was helpful. We're going to get into next Monday. I'm excited because we're going to help Chandler out with some of her online programming. So this has all been hypotheticals for people we're working with one-on-one. Now we're going to go over a case with a client who reached out and they want a program design. How much should we charge for it? How much service do we give? How much do we provide? Do we give a number? Do we not give a number? Those are all things that we're going to take a look at next. If this is one of your first classes, we just are going to be launching the new internship. It's not new, but just more classes being offered on Monday. So we'll start having multiple classes per day. For now, I'm sending these out to everyone in the Patreon. But we do have a tier, which is the $10 tier, which is kind of like just to give you a demo of what this is like. But you will get access to 1 class per week, not like the live classes, more the programming classes. And that's more for trainers that are working with clients. And, I understand it's tough right now with money, but that tier is for people who maybe are training, they have a unique situation, they reach out to me, and then we'll design a program and we'll do that once a week for them. So we will have a social media class tomorrow. If you haven't had a chance to sit on any of the social media classes, just shoot me a message and we'll give you that one for free. Danny will be doing that tomorrow. And Saturday, we will also be doing a review of all the shoulder stuff from the last month, which will then set us up for hip anatomy starting on Monday. Any other questions?